Sunday Mail reporter Sarah Meny describes in her article in July 2010 of the bullying being encountered by a 13-year-old girl from South Australia. The article acquaints us with Chloe Hill, a brave young girl who suffers from autism and has endured years of torment and bullying by peers at schools she has attended. So tired of the torment, Chloe draws strength to address her peers by reading out a self-written letter expressing her feelings to a whole school assembly. Despite even these pleas, the bullying continues. Chloe's mother is quoted by many as stating that her daughter struggles socially and kids don't like that she is different. She just wants to be accepted. This is a sad but very real example of difference being seen as deficit, and at the extreme subjecting someone with differences to physical and emotional abuse. In a social context, we group ourselves with people who are like us. Austin explains the process of othering, or more commonly termed as otherness, as establishing those who are not like us, those who are different. They are the other. This process is critical in group identity formation when a group utilises its sense of self and other to decide whether or not to accept a person socially. Significant othering can conclude that admission to certain social groups will be difficult. With respect to, in this case, a disorder or condition, in most cases they are seen as different and admission to social networks proves challenging, especially for a condition whereby social interaction and communication pose the biggest challenge. Bullying is an outcome of othering in its most negative form. Although, as Austin outlines, those people who are the other or are the minority do not necessarily carry a stigma and shouldn't be discriminated against, more commonly than not they are. Theorist Derrida draws upon the notion that with social formulation of meaning in relation to difference in binary opposition terms, automatic or assumed meaning then becomes associated with that specific location. Therefore, if you have an inability, you are automatically socially assumed to conduct yourself a certain way, have particular characteristics, and thus assigned a specific social stigma, whether accurate or not. In our modern-day globalised world, Australian society assumes a social culture of being an accepting, tolerant and open-minded community. Yet bullying of another person in our Australian society for being slightly different opposes this notion and dismisses a social spirit Australians seem to adopt. Historically, disability has been seen as a major difference to the norm or the mainstream, and thus resulted in institutionalisation for most, as discussed by the author Race. Our more modern society has come a long way to the point of integration of students with ability weaknesses into mainstream schooling in what seems to be a two-way approach, giving students with disabilities exposure to mainstream and mainstream an understanding of challenges faced by those with differing abilities. Our classrooms and schoolyards are critical environments where social identities are formed. A major challenge for us as future educators is teaching an understanding of difference without prejudice or deficit formation, bridging those gaps within each student's zone of difference. So to incorporate this event in curriculum, I've chosen 3 activities to increase awareness and understanding of difference, and in particular with respect to differing abilities and social interaction difficulties. These simple activities should be focused and delivered in a positive manner, and it's hoped that a reduction in bullying practices would be evident by understanding and respecting other people and ultimately increasing self-worth. These activities require teachers to be mindful and accommodating of those students who may require additional assistance. For Activity 1, students are divided into groups based on their responses to a variety of teacher-led questions. Questions such as, who is a boy, who is a girl, who has light hair, who has dark hair, who likes pizza, who does not, who has a brother or sister, who can speak more than one language, who can ride a bike without training wheels, who can tie their own shoelaces, who gets shy sometimes, and who likes to be a leader. All these questions prove to segregate the class into groups of opposites. After each question, students are to take a moment to talk to each other in their similar groups. Students can interact with each other in a positive way and locate how they each fit within each of their divisional groups. Students have identified similarities and also differences with everyone in the class. Perhaps they have identified similarities with those who they initially saw as different, and even differences in those who they thought they were similar to. Activity 2 is getting students to participate in a range of activities slightly modified to prove additionally challenging to the students. This activity proves to teach recognition that some people find some activities challenging, which to others might seem effortless. It encourages appreciation of differing abilities. Activities like placing large gloves on students and asking them to pick up small buttons and place in a bowl. Maybe the students could use chopsticks to pick up pieces of paper off the table and place in a bowl. Wearing earmuffs, the students to follow directions to try and find an object or to point out a letter on the floor. And finally, something like goggles smeared with Vaseline to impair vision, and then ask the student to follow a chalk line on the ground. Activity 3 is reading the following 2 publications to the students. Max and the Rainbow Rain Hat by Gus Clarke is a cheerful book brightly illustrating the character Max and issues he faces making friends when is constantly followed by a rather large rain cloud. The book explores isolation, difference, challenges, friendship and adjustment. Explore the topics further with students by engaging in discussions about the book. How do you think Max felt before he made his hat? How do you think Max felt after he made his hat? And what differences did we notice in Max? The second book, Sometimes I Feel Shy by Dr. Samantha Seymour, is a book taken from the series of titles Examining Emotions by the author. This book simplistically covers the emotion of shyness and would prove beneficial in illustrating seemingly withdrawn and antisocial behaviour. Some questions asked after reading the book would be: do you sometimes feel shy? When do you feel shy? And do you think everyone gets shy sometimes? So in conclusion, schools are an ideal setting for difference and dominant behaviour. They are hierarchical domains and classrooms are increasingly diverse. As an educator, it is important to model students well, to value differences, have tolerance of others, recognise zones of difference and where possible reduce the zone, have respect for each other and appreciation of individual identity. Identifying and educating difference needs structure and caution so as not to inadvertently establish privilege or deficit by the very activities, discussions and modelling performed. As Lewis outlines, schools have a significant role to play in the ongoing shaping of national identities. So how can education mediate difference and dominance? By establishing an understanding of ourselves and an understanding of others.